Herman Melville said, "There is no crime so shameful as poverty." I don't think that poverty is the crime. Maybe you were just born into a tough situation, or perhaps you're from a part of the world where struggle is just an everyday part of life. Maybe you're working as hard as you possibly can, but still not reaching and achieving your full potential and your financial goals. I think the true crime is being perpetrated by the people who, through their actions, may be trying to keep you poor. Let's explore. The language of financial manipulation. What exactly does that mean? Let's start out by defining that. If someone is doing something through their actions to assist in keeping you poor, what would that look like? I think a definition for me would be something someone might say to get you to take action using fear or pleasure. What exactly do I mean by that? The language of financial manipulation is usually something that someone's going to say in hopes to gain a benefit for them. And they're going to motivate you through several things. And the two most basic factors that work would be fear. You're going to be scared that if you don't do this, if you don't take some sort of action, you may lose out or something bad might happen. Or they can, of course, use pleasure. They can use the idea that you might gain something if you take the action that they want you to take. The problem with this whole thinking and the language of manipulation is that it's taking away the idea of you taking your time. They always want you to take action now. And when you don't take your time to think about it, that's when mistakes get made. They use language to create a sense of urgency or scarcity. This will allow you to make a very quick decision, maybe not the right decision, maybe not the best decision, but it's going to motivate you to do something right now. They're going to use language like act now. You may never see this ad again. Limited supply or limited time offer. Don't miss out. Hurry. Get started today. And all of this is okay. And it is, perfectly legal, of course. They can do all this, but it's once again forcing you to make a decision very, very quickly. A more predatory, but, still legal way of saying some of these offers and the language of financial manipulation might be start your free trial, zero down. But of course, what does zero down really mean? When you put zero down into anything, it means you're just signing up for a bigger payment. If you were buying a car and they said, hey, zero down this week on, any car over $20,000, well, you're still better off putting the money down because your payments are going to be less and for a shorter time. Zero down is just a fancy way of getting you to close right away and have bigger, longer term payments. That's all you're signing up for. Low interest or low introductory interest. That's really another one that just gets you like hook, line, and sinker. No interest for 90 days. That's another one that will lure people in. Of course, click here for a free consultation or get a quote in minutes. That's my favorite one, get a quote in minutes. Notice how they're not saying get a quote in 2 minutes or we'll pay you $50 because once you start to log in and you start to give them information, that's really what they want. Whether you are signing up for what they have to sell or not, after 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages in and you see that little bar is barely moved at all, you're not going to get any quote or any consultation in a matter of minutes. But what they are doing is collecting a lot of data. If you go the full term on that, they have managed to extract where you live and when you were born and how many people are in your household and what your average income is and all of this other peripheral data that we are gladly giving away. Now, what do they do with that data? This is just data mining, really, because even if you don't end up going with their quote or their policy or their product, they now have acquired enough information about you where they actually have something to sell. And information is power. So what they do is when they've collected enough enough of that information, which you've so given up freely, then they will sell that to other people in their market. So even if they don't end up getting a sale out of you buying their product, they still have collected enough information where they can now sell that to other people in their industry. And this is just the way information mining really, really works. Now, of course, none of that is illegal. They're just luring you in, and they are doing something that's perfectly legal and using the language of financial manipulation to get you to do something that may be better for them than for you. And most time it is. Of course, there is illegal manipulation, right? There's a lot of scams that go on. Recently, the FBI reported over $12 billion in fraudulent monies that went out to scamsters, right? So people have been scammed out of over $12 billion just in the past few years. How do they do this? Scamsters will do this through trust that is created through a company, business, or even an entertainment personality that is familiar to you, or at least sounds familiar to you. And of course, they use fear, so they'll use fake documents, maybe things that come into your phone or an email or your computer that say, hey, this is about to expire and the government's after you for this and you have this unpaid bill. Whatever it is, these fake documents are there to scare you using fear. They'll say things like there's suspicious activity on your account. Remember, there's a positive side of this too. They can use fear or they can use pleasure. So have you ever seen, oh, just click here to claim your free prize, or this is an opportunity that you're going to miss out on. You just want a free cruise. You just want a free vacation, whatever it is. You've won money. We've found accounts with your name on them and you have these old bank accounts or whatever it is, and claim that money before you lose it. Just click here before you lose your money. This, of course, is preying on the side of pleasure. I'm going to gain if I do this. We've all been scammed at one point or another in some way or another. I remember when I was a really young man living in Los Angeles. I had just moved to LA, actually for the second time, but I was a teenager. You know, I moved there to go to school. I went to school and then I took a little break. And when I went back, I didn't have a place to live the second time I moved back to California. I hadn't secured an apartment yet. So I was living with some friends and I decided to look at one of those services. I was having such a hard time finding an apartment. I said, oh, there's apartment services out there that help you, and they guaranteed, that's what it said, guaranteed to find you a place in a couple weeks or less, or your money back. You pay nothing. I went in and talked to them one day, and I'd only been in town, you know, a couple days, but I mean, I'd called like 30 places and found nothing. And I said, this may be harder than it looks for whatever reason. Let me use one of these services. So I went in, and the deal was actually a great deal. It was, you know, you give them what would be your first month's rent. So you tell them what you can afford. And at the time I could afford about $800 a month. So I gave them $800. And that first month, they would negotiate with the owner of the property so that your first month would still count towards your first month, and somehow they would get paid out of that. I didn't really understand it, and I was a teenager, but I said, you know, it sounds good to me. I don't have to come up with first month's rent. I'm giving it to you guys. I gave them the money, and of course, went home and I kept looking for an apartment. Now, of course, the deal was their guarantee, right, that got me in was that if they didn't find something within a couple of weeks, or if I found something on my own, then I would be refunded my money. So I could just use it on my own to go get the apartment of my dreams. Well, what happened is 3-4 days in, I did end up finding a place. So I called them back and I didn't get anyone, and I called them again and I left messages. Finally, on the third day, you know, I was really ready to close on this new place, but I, of course, needed my $800 back. So I went down to the building where I had met these people, and it was like a kind of an insurance agency. When I walked in the first time, there was about, you know, 20 desks and people on phones, and they were just apartment hunting, right? So I went there 3 or 4 days later to request my money back, figuring they're just going to give me a check and I'll go grab this other apartment. And the building was completely empty. There was nobody in the building. Every desk was gone. Every phone line was disconnected. The name was still on the building. You know, they had put a board out there, but Basically, it was a big scam. And I looked into it, and of course, I hadn't looked into it before. I didn't do any references on the company. I didn't call the Better Business Bureau. I wasn't looking at anything. I figured they have a business, they have a building, it's a legit place. And of course, I was a teenager, so I was very young. I was a noob to this whole thing and knew nothing about that business. And I thought, of course, they're just going to find me an apartment. That was a learning experience. But these people lured me in through these great ads that motivated me through fear and pleasure. The fear that I might not be able to find something. We will definitely find something. You don't want to be out here and be homeless. And the pleasure of finding the perfect place, of course. So there is a language, and we have to look. Now, our greatest defense against that language, of course, is taking time, because time allows you to really investigate, explore, and really scrutinize. And yeah, maybe we should scrutinize more. Maybe we should be a little bit more leery, because there is tons of this language out there that is constantly trying to reel us in for the purpose of what? Getting our hard-earned dollars. So remember, take your time. Time is your greatest defense against being scammed and against the entire language of financial manipulation. My name is Daniel F. Margasso. You're watching The Almost Criminal Millionaire. And if you enjoy learning about the topic of finance, money, and how to keep more of your hard-earned dollars, then please like and subscribe for more.